Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dungeon Dive, and welcome to the year-end review slash some kind of award show, but not really. Look back, look ahead, all combined together into one video. I'm just going to do it all in one video this year. Just kind of a retrospective looking back at the Dungeon Dive in 2020, talk a little bit about the channel, how it's progressing, talk a little bit about how the collection is progressing, talk about some of the games I really liked in 2020. I'm not going to do a Dungeon Dive award show this year. The simple fact is I just didn't play enough new games to do a meaningful award show this year. That's just kind of a sad fact about 2020, which is I did not play very many new games. And then we're going to take a look at some of the other things that I enjoyed hobby-wise this year, and then look a little bit ahead into 2021 and talk about the future of the Dungeon Dive and things I'm looking forward to and projects I want to do. So thank you guys so much for watching and commenting and supporting the channel over the course of this last year. 2020 has definitely been a bizarre year, to say the least. Looking back, just a couple of the things that that we accomplished on the Dungeon Dive. One of the big things is we launched the Patreon, and I just want to say thank you to everybody who has supported me so far. It means so much to me, and I am shocked at the support that we have so far here. I think we have 40 patrons, and I know to some people that may not seem like very many, but I was expecting 10 or 20. And so the fact that we have 40 people who are like super just supportive of the things I do and appreciate the things I do, that 40 people out there like the Dungeon Dive is pretty amazing, or like it enough to financially support it. So if you guys can, please do. I have $3 and $5 tiers. You know, I've already given away a couple things. I have a set of Sword and Sorcery books that I'm giving away this month. So yeah, it's been really cool. It's been neat to kind of like legitimize the channel in that way, and I really do want to try to become a little financially self-supporting in the channel, and I want to do that in a way that I can remain 100% independent and also, you know, not have advertisements, because I hate how many advertisements are on YouTube now. It's getting out of control. But anyways, okay, we also did our first series of top 10 lists, and that was a lot of fun. Don't expect too many going forward. I don't play enough like wide variety of games, I don't think, to really do meaningful top 10s. We will, of course, revisit the top 10 dungeon crawls and top 10 adventure games from time to time, probably every couple years, to see how things fluctuate. And maybe throughout the year I'll do a couple like top 5s or something, make up some interesting categories. But I had a lot of fun during that week that I was off for a whole week and just did videos every day. That was super fun. Man, if that could be my job, that would be amazing. But probably no such luck. Into the future a little bit, I am going to be focusing a little more on the wider realms of the fantastic on the Dungeon Dive. The very first video I did for the channel was for a little game book, a little fantasy game book, and it has always been my intention to incorporate all elements of the fantastic, because that is kind of there is a common thread throughout so many of the things that I love, no matter if it's books, if it's games, even if it's the music I listen to and make. There is this underlying sense of the importance of storytelling, of creating story, and of experiencing story. And I am not the kind of person who can stay in one lane while I am enjoying something. I am constantly swerving all over the road, constantly connecting dots between between the things I'm reading, the things I'm watching, the things I'm playing, the music I'm listening to, the music I'm making. Things are always reminding me of other things, and that's always how my brain has worked, and that is what I've always envisioned for this channel. So I'm sure that will please some. I'm sure that might upset some, as maybe the focus starts to move away from just games and more into other things. We'll see. I mean, I'm not moving away from games at all, but I am going to be focusing on some other things. Most of that has to do with like books and art. So yes, there will be more book things in 2021. Some of you might like that, some of you might not. And I understand that, you know, but like I said, there is this interconnectedness in everything, and especially in the Sword and Sorcery Saga series that I am doing. As I'm reading these stories, it's becoming more and more apparent to me that the games that I talk about on this channel, the games that we love to play, they are the logical extension of the Sword and Sorcery genre. That genre is kind of dead in the modern storytelling, the modern book era. There are a few small authors and publishers who continue the genre, who keep it alive. But for the most part, the Sword and Sorcery genre is kept alive. It has transitioned into board games and video games. That's where it lives. So going back and reading these old stories, it's just like, it's impossible for me to now think of any of these games without thinking of that original fiction that has inspired so much of it. And I think that was kind of like, it was pretty apparent to me when I first did my big review. I think it was kind of like my first big review for Dungeon Degenerate's Hand of Doom. And that has always kind of been the map that I want to, or the goal that I want to work towards. And I don't feel like I have quite nailed what exactly I want to do with the Dungeon Dive, but I feel like I'm getting closer. I'm inching closer to I think really finding the voice of the channel, and that is important to me. Now, I know that some people don't like the book reviews. They seem to always be the first ones to get downvoted, and they seem to have the fewest views ever. But I'm going to continue doing them because they make me happy, and I have and I have fun doing that. Speaking of things that I've really enjoyed that I've started this year on the channel it's just a recent development, and that is the Art of series. So I've done 2 so far, the Art of Cave Evil and the Art of Talisman 2nd edition, which I just posted a couple days before this video, and that has been a lot of fun for me. It has also been a lot of fun for me to start incorporating some of my music into the channel, and I think people are liking it. The new introductions to the videos, they have some music I wrote for these little like jingles for fake VHS companies I did a couple years ago, and using some of my music as background music for that Art of series has been just intensely rewarding for me. And you're going to be seeing a lot more of the Art of series, because that is one thing that I think I focus on more than maybe other board game channels, is the art, is the importance of the art, and celebrating the artists that make these games. And I think that's a good way to do that. So I'm hoping people are liking it. I think they are. I think people are pretty happy about those videos. So yes, expect more. So like I was saying, as some of you may have noticed, I didn't play very many new games, new 2020 games this year. A lot of the games I was looking forward to, they didn't come out this year. They were delayed, probably because of COVID, due to COVID. You know, how many times are we going to hear that for like the next 5 years? But yeah, and some of the ones that did like fell really short of my anticipation. I revisited a few older games that I had reviewed previously, and some older games that I had not, part of like the Retro Look series. And I plan on revisiting games from time to time. I really like doing that. I wish more YouTube channels did that. You usually get this influx of especially with Kickstarter games, you get, it seems like the vast majority of videos way before the game is even freaking made. And then you get a few unboxings, and then a couple actual like critical responses trail in, and then it's forgotten about. So I want to be someone who continues to look at the new hotness a year later and discuss it and see how it's, if it's still interesting, if there are still things that it has to offer after it's lost that shine. So there are a lot of games coming in, though. There are a lot of new games still coming in. I think I still have about 30 games I'm waiting for. So rest assured, there are still a ton of new games to cover coming in. So in 2020, I posted about 130 videos. In those 130 videos, some of them were series. I only covered 20 games and or expansions that were released in 2020. So that's how few there were, about 20. We had our first masterclass series of videos, and that was, of course, with Warhammer Quest Silver Tower. We will be doing probably another one of those in 2021, another masterclass series. We covered some old retro games with Mertwig's Maze, and I really expected my Mertwig's Maze video to get more traction. I even gave it a super sensationalized title. The only time I've ever given a game, I think, a sensationalized title talking about Mertwig Maze and the Satanic Panic. I thought for sure that would hit a lot harder, just because that is so funny to think about that game in that context. But it didn't really hit that hard, and it is actually the only full motion modern video of that game on YouTube. I guess that just goes to show how few people care about Mertwig's Maze. We did the Advanced Hero Quest series, which was a lot of fun. I took a look at Prophecy. Multiple looks at Talisman 2nd edition, which was kind of weird. I did not mean to do that. It wasn't planned, but it just kind of happened. Another thing we did in 2020, which has been really fun, is the Dungeon Dive Book Club. So we covered a Lord Dunsany collection of stories. We did the Agents of Dreamland book, and now we are on book 3 of the Stephen King Dark Tower series, which has been so much fun. We're next Saturday we're having our third meet up with that on Google Meets, and that has been an amazing time talking with some awesome people about the Dark Tower. I started my Ranking of Kings series, which continues to be supremely unpopular, but I'm going to keep doing it because it's fun for me. And I kicked off my Sword and Sorcery Saga project, which is my baby right now. I'm having so much fun with that, and I'm really looking forward to developing that series in 2021. And eventually, when it's done, my plan is to write a book about the genre. So speaking of what I was saying earlier about some games that came in that were disappointments. The big one, of course, Secrets of the Lost Station. My God, guys. I was expecting that to be the game that I spent just a ton of time with this year. As I was anticipating its release, I was looking at how much stuff was going to be in that game, and I was just so stoked to get it to the table and just live in that world and play that game for weeks on end. And man, that just did not happen, and that's a real bummer. That's a major bummer for that one. Another one was D6, Dungeon Dudes Dames Dice Dungeon Danger D6. Great look, amazing production. It's barely a game. I'm sorry. That thing was a huge disappointment. So both of those have been sold. Some other things that have sold, they just didn't work out. Hunters AD came and went. I could not figure out a way to to keep the game set up on my table, and to because it really did need to be set up for quite a while, and it actually couldn't fit. And this year has been pretty weird in that since my wife and I are working at home now, I'm working in my hobby room, she's out in the kitchen. So I used to be able to have, a game while I was learning a game. I could have it set up out in the kitchen. While I was filming, I could set it up out here. I don't have that luxury anymore. So that has been one limiting factor on the number of games that I've played. Another 2 games that I sold, I did end up selling Alter Quest and Street Masters. Alter Quest I think is a fine game, but when I boxed it up and I put it up on my shelf and it was taking up with the 2 boxes, it was taking up just like a whole cubby. I could fit 4 smaller games in that same space. I realized that I just was never going to play that game again. It didn't wow me. It was a little enticing. I think it's a good game. I think it's a solid game. I just knew it wouldn't be one that I played again. So I sold that and Street Masters. I sold Thunderstone Quest without even ever making a video on it. I got that used this year. Actually, I got it brand new from somebody who got it on Kickstarter, but I organized it all and spent hours pouring through all the content and reading the instructions. I set it up and it just did nothing for me, so I sold that. I also sold Core Space. I love the game. It is a fantastic game, but once again, space issues. I just didn't have enough space to keep it set up, and that's a game that really you need to keep that thing set up because it takes 30 plus minutes to set up and take down, and I'm not going to do that every time I want to play the game. If I ever get the money and the time to convert my garage to a hobby room, I will rebuy that game or whatever game Battle Systems is making currently in a heartbeat because they make fantastic stuff. I also sold Conan just because I was never playing it. Finally sold that. I sold Giga Robo Kickstarter thing that came in. I never even played it. I backed it so long ago when I still had the notion of playing competitive games, and it's just not even opened. Big mecha fighting game. Anime inspired. I sold Madara without doing a review for it. I didn't want to take the heat of doing a negative review of the Kickstarter darling. So the long and short of it is too much reading. When I'm playing a game, I like story, but I don't want to read a novel. And so many times when my group got together to play that game, we read almost as much as we played. And it just the reading got in the way of the game, and it was so tightly controlled. We never felt like we were living in the story. We felt like we were being railroaded down a pre-constructed just train track of things that happened to us. And we never really felt like we were, in any sense, role-playing our characters, because in between every single mission, we would be reading for 20 or 30 minutes about things our characters were doing and saying and acting. And so it was a neat system. I like the dice system. I love all the components. I think the game plays beautifully. It is an awesome playing game. If they had a mode where it was just random dungeon crawl, Warhammer Quest style character progression campaign mode, I would be all over that freaking game, but just not for me. Sold it. And I also found a buyer for Dark Souls. So I ended up selling everything for $20 though. So I kind of took a major hit on that one, but less said about that game, the better. And okay, so of the 10 games that I was looking forward to in 2020, only one came out, and that was Alter Quest. Let's go through those real quick. Number 10 that I was looking forward to, Return to the Dark Tower. I have actually decided not to pull the trigger on that one. I think it's really expensive, and it just seems really big, and I'm having a hard time really embracing really big game or any other really big games because of some others that are coming in soon and ones I already have. I still think that the integration of the app is awesome. I think that game is going to be really neat, and I wish one of my friends would have backed it so I could play it. But Dungeons of Infinity, which I think the designer, Jack Spooner, I think he just got his like final, not prototype, but his final print review copy. So that should be hitting pretty soon. That just looks like a really standard tile laying, questing, dungeon crawl game. And as much as we love that genre, there really aren't very many games like that. It's kind of weird. So I am super excited for that. Waste Knights 2nd Edition should be coming any day now. I've heard some mixed things about the rulebook on that one. Fingers crossed. Carnival Zombie 2nd Edition. Yeah, who knows what the hell is up with Carnival Zombies 2nd Edition. They're still working on the miniatures. A game that doesn't even need... There aren't even spaces on that game board. Why does that game need minis? Guys, come on. Stop with the mini craze. Carnival Zombie is a game that does not need minis. Didn't the original game just have wooden cubes? Like, what's wrong with that? Okay, never mind. That's a different topic. Bloodborne should be coming soon. I've heard some pretty good things. I think some Asian countries, have gotten that game. My couple buddies, a couple people, patrons who are from Korea have gotten it, and they seem pretty excited about it so far. So looking forward to that. The Ghosts Betwixt was another one I was looking forward to in 2020. Still excited about that one. I'm hoping to get Dustin on for a Patreon call with the patrons with the $5 a month level to talk about the game when it comes out, and I'll announce something else in just a minute. Map Maker Adventures. I know the designer of that had some health issues this year. I don't think COVID related, but a little bit of delay on that. So still looking forward to that. Alter Quest we already talked about. The Everrain, more like the Never Rain, the Never Came. I have no idea what's going on with that game. Again, another game that it seems like the miniatures are just delay because of plastic. And the final game that was not delayed because of plastic, and that is Sleeping Gods. Still, fingers crossed, I hope Ryan Lockett nails that combination of Euro-style play with Ameritrash style storytelling. I hope this is the one that nails it. Fingers crossed. And that game should be coming soon as well. So now we're going to take a look at some things that I absolutely loved in 2020. The things that I purchased this year for hobbies that brought me the most joy were all book related. And so we're going to take a look at some of those right now. One thing that I've always wanted to own, but it's always been a little expensive, and I got a little bit of an extra Christmas bonus this year from my work, are the first edition, first printing DAW paperback versions of the Elric saga with the Michael Whalen art. And I found a set, and there's actually even a drawing here that's maybe signed by Michael Moorcock. The guy says it is. That's not why I bought it, but I finally found a full set in pretty dang good condition, especially considering that they're nearly 40 years old now. But this is my display copies. I have like the Ace paperbacks that I am reading. The Elric saga is by far my favorite sword and sorcery fiction. I love it to death, and these Michael Whalen covers are just to die for. His art is so good, and these books are amazing, especially these last two. Just incredibly iconic covers for the genre. And so I went ahead and splurged a little bit on these, but it is worth it. I'm going to make a little display case and probably hang these on my wall. And speaking of Elric and that sticker that was signed, that signed picture, I also bought this James Cawthorne, The Man and His Art, written by his sister. So this is an art book and a biography written about James Cawthorne, and he was an artist who did a lot of work with Michael Moorcock on his different Eternal Champion series, and he helped define the look of Elric and Hawkmoon in a number of comic books that he drew for some of Michael Moorcock's art. And this is just a beautiful, beautiful book that has all kinds of tributes from different fantasy authors and all kinds of his art and stories about him as a person, and just a fantastic book all about James Cawthorne, kind of an unsung hero of fantasy art. You don't hear his name mentioned very often. Another one of my favorite books I got this year, of course I did do the video on this one, and that is You Are the Hero. Fantastic. Just from cover to cover, overflowing with nostalgia. And one of the best things about this book is just how much it celebrates the artist. On every single page there's art, and under every single piece of art is attributed to the artist. And because so much of what we love about the fighting fantasy books are the covers and the art. The books themselves, like, you don't really remember the details, but you remember those pictures. And it's kind of a problem with this resurgence of modern game books, is the lack of art in them is really troubling. And I get it, the art is the most expensive asset, but this book is proof that the art is also crucially important to those books. So amazing book. And by far the biggest thing I bought this year, and I can barely even lift it up. We are going to be doing a series, a look at this book, but yeah, look how big this book is. This is the Taschen Masterworks of Fantasy Art. It weighs 17 pounds. It actually, if I can grab it here real quick, it actually came in its own box to protect it. It is, this is a limited edition. There are only, I think, 7,000 made, but here's the dust jacket. So the front of the dust jacket has this Frazetta from The Princess of Mars, the Edgar Rice Burroughs planetary romance, and then the back of the dust jacket has this piece by Mobius. And I mean, this is how big the dust jacket is. It's massive, and it was written by Diane Hansen, and she is the editor of Taschen's Sexy Book series. And it is an amazing book filled with so much art that it's incredible. It was kind of a crazy purchase, and I'm not really sure how I'm supposed to look at it because it weighs so much, but every time I do look at it, I enjoy it. Okay, so now we're going to look at some games. There's just a few. Because like I said, I didn't play a lot of new games this year, and a couple of the games we're looking at are not new, but they were special to me this year. The first one is going to be the biggest surprise for me, and that would be how much I actually ended up enjoying Shadows of Malice. This super minimal, kind of just boring looking adventure game ended up being a game that really captured my imagination. It's a game that I think about often. It's a game that I want to play often. I love the writing in the rulebook. I love how the developer incorporated the lore with the mechanisms. It is a game that requires the players to give to it in order to receive something back. And I appreciate that. And it just does so many neat things. And a lot of times people talk about the idea of something being replayable being kind of like this upper tier quality that people are looking for. this is that game. I mean, this is so replayable because everything is just kind of generated on the fly. It gives you the map of the game and gives you a direction, and then everything else you just kind of have to not make up, but you have to make up the narrative and the things that are happening to you on the fly and connecting dots. Every game is different, even though it's contained in a box. Yeah, Shadows of Malice really surprised me by how much I ended up liking it. The game that I had just the most fun with this year was Secret Unknown Stuff Escape from Dulce. This big box of fun here, super like ray punk, rocket punk, science fiction, kind of conspiracy game, Area 51 style, gray aliens, time travel. If you've ever read the books by Mark Rogers, the Samurai Cat books, it's like a spoofy sci-fi adventure game in a box. Every time I think about the game and like I read the rules, and it's so simple. Like, you do the same thing every turn. Seriously, you walk into a room, you draw a card, and you have an encounter. That's the entire game. But it's always fun because the encounters are interesting. They're varied. The character progression is super fun. There's so much loot, and the loot is interesting. The way it interacts, yeah, it's just so much fun. If I have a complaint about the game, it's a little long for what it is. But they were supposed to do some new expansions this year, but probably due to COVID, that probably got a little delayed. So hopefully we'll see some more stuff coming from. But I played that game quite a bit this year, and I enjoyed it a lot. The game that I am looking forward to most, because of some expansion materials coming out, is another big box that I spent a lot of time on this year on videos, and that is Dungeon Universalis. I'm not going to lift that up because it's very heavy and the box is not very sturdy. Dungeon Universalis is a huge game. It could be the ultimate fantasy dungeon crawl adventure game. It does need a little bit of work, and I talked about that in my review. And they are working on that rulebook, and I'm super looking forward to two things. One, the basic rules that are going to come out in their own rulebook that make the game a little easier, a little less fiddly. Really looking forward to playing through the campaign with the basic rules. Two, the additional monster cards that are coming out that have the full list of stats with the gear, so you don't have to stop your game every time and generate your monsters. Really looking forward to those two things, and then I am looking forward to diving headfirst into everything this game has to offer. Playing this game with the developers was so much fun. Creating characters was so much fun. Just experiencing all the stuff that this game has to offer makes me really excited about the future. And speaking about the future, one thing I am looking forward to is the new materials, the new expansions coming out for Machina Arcana. This is probably my favorite game of 2020. I know some people got it in 2019. I got it in 2020, so I'm considering it a 2020 game for me. Fantastic game. I have not stopped thinking about that game. It is brilliant. I'm looking forward to the new stuff coming out. It sounds really interesting. A friend who is on the Dungeon Dive Facebook group is helping write some of the material for it, and he's a fantastic writer. And I'm really excited for what is going to happen with Machina Arcana. Just a fantastic game, even though there are some issues with the rulebook, and the developer has addressed those. There are all new like rulebooks that you can download, player aids and guides to the world. So he's really developed this into a fantastic game. And the game that I am looking most forward to finishing and is Aetherfields. Aetherfields is a game that I love. I think this game is truly something special. Unfortunately, I put it away in anticipation of Sands of Shurax Explore It. And then Sands of Shurax sat on my table for 2 weeks, almost 2 weeks, while I was like trying to learn it and play it and get into that game. And the entire time I just kept thinking I should have cut my losses and just boxed it up and got Aetherfields back out onto the table. But again, it's that weird thing where I don't have 2 tables anymore. So, and to keep videos coming, I kind of have to, you know, the tabletop commodity, the commodity of space and time in my little hobby room is it is a strict economy. It's a balancing act of making new videos, of experiencing new things, but also keeping something that I love like Aetherfields on the table. So yeah, that is some things that I loved in 2020. Some games that I backed and some games that I am looking forward to soon. Or not soon, these will probably be a little ways away. But new games that I backed in 2020 that I am excited for. Bardsong, Darkest Dungeon, the new Dungeon Universalis and Machina Arcana expansions, Forgotten Depths, 7th Citadel, which I just did a late pledge for. I decided to just a couple days ago. Massive Darkness 2. I think that's going to be pretty good. I think that might be kind of a sleeper hit. I mean, not sleeper, it's massively successful, but a lot of people really hated Massive Darkness. And I like Massive Darkness, so I think 2 is going to be pretty interesting. Dawn Shade, Hell, Chronicles of Drunagor, which is the lamest name. I always call it Chronicles of Drug Smoker or something. It's just like, it's Chronicles of Drunagor. I think that game looks really neat though. And Stars of Akarios. And I'll put links to all of these in the description. And finally, things I am looking forward to arriving very soon. Guys, it's almost here. It is sitting on the East Coast. I have the US Postal Service tracking number. I think it's just waiting in customs, but it's actually done. And it's almost to the table. Dungeon Crusade. Like, can you believe it? I never thought this day would come, but we might actually be playing Dungeon Crusade in a month's time. Amazing. Hopefully we will be seeing a lot of that game on the Dungeon Dive in 2021. Waste Knights 2nd edition should be arriving soon. I think I mentioned that above. Hopefully I did. That was on my list last year. I've heard some mixed things about the rule books. But that is coming from Poland soon. I have my tracking, and Bloodborne should be coming very soon. So that's it. That was a 40-minute non-stop blab fest. So that is the state of the Dungeon Dive. That is things that we did in 2020, some things that I loved in 2020, some disappointments, some great fun times I had, lots of good book stuff, lots of good fantasy. Just fantasy is so exciting to me right now. Maybe more exciting to me than it's been in my entire life, even like way back in the day when I was like super into Dungeons and Dragons and reading Dragonlance and the Forgotten Realms novels and all of that kind of stuff. I'm really feeling the pull of really fantastic, adventurous fantasy right now. And that is kind of just, I'm feeling that in everything that I am into. Music, games, books, art, and it's very exciting for me. And I'm really hoping to be able to capture that excitement on the Dungeon Dive in the coming years and develop it into something that is interesting to other people, even though maybe some people may not be into all of it. Hopefully enough people find elements of the things that I enjoy and the way I talk about them that we can continue to grow the channel and grow the community. Speaking of the community, if you guys aren't, come over to the Facebook Dungeon Dive group. It's fantastic. We have some really, really fun and somewhat deep conversations about games and art and books and all kinds of things there. And look forward to more Dungeon Dive book club books in the future. So, all right, guys. Well, thanks again for watching this year. Thank you for all of your support and your comments. And looking forward to the future of the Dungeon Dive. So take it easy, guys. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.